Welcome to Loren Reads to You. Today we are reading The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. So make sure you're following and subscribing wherever you're watching or listening to this. And if you haven't heard or seen chapters 1 through 15 yet, and you want to, make sure you pause this, save this, go watch those, and then come back. Otherwise, get comfy, get ready, and let's read chapter 16. Chapter 16. Standing in his lover's living room, he stared at the photo. He remembered that day. So did little Horace. He took him in hand and began to remember how she looked wet in that white sheer bikini. It only took a few strokes for little Horace to explode into the fireplace like he did that day all over the fence when he was watching through it. Horace sighed happily. Horace took the picture of Julie that he had found in the living room with him upstairs. Her room connected from the second story to a staircase down to her private suite. Walking down that staircase to her private door caused him to lose more and more of his grip on reality with every step he walked. Soon, he was at Miss Julie's bedroom door. Just standing in her entrance caused such a full body tremor he could hardly keep himself standing. His knees almost gave out from the intensity of the sensation. I'm in my lady's private space and place, Horace thought. He lost control in that moment, almost falling over himself as he stepped inside. He frantically began searching through her drawers. He knew what he was looking for. Horace knew what he needed, desired, and longed for. After only a few moments, his hands closed on the object of his desire. The moment his hand made contact with it, he sighed. The feeling of it in his hand instantly calmed him, yet it made him somehow even more crazed with lust. With her light pink silk panties in one hand, Horace lay down on her bed. He placed her picture onto her pillow and wrapped her pink silk panties around little Horace, whom he never bothered to put away. Horace stared at his lover's picture and began rubbing himself against Miss Julie's panties. It was wonderful. There he was, having such an intimate time with his lover. The fantasy had enveloped his every sense once again. It wasn't just a picture of his lover anymore. It was her underneath him. It didn't matter to her how many times little Horace explored and exploded with joy. She was always ready and excited for more. Horace couldn't see a picture and feel the panties any longer. Instead, they were her. He was completely wrapped up in his fantasy, not caring for how much noise he had made, nor for how big a mess he was making on the bed. He spent quite a while lying there, enjoying his private time with his lover, till a noise shook him back to reality. It was the sound of a garage door opening. Horace jumped up very quickly. The noise had shattered his fantasy world, causing him to feel terrified and disoriented. He began to run. He ran straight to the back door and out of it. He locked it and even put the key back in its hiding place. He was relieved he got out of there in time. It could have been her father. Horace didn't need any more problems with him. He certainly didn't want to try and explain his relationship with the man's daughter. None of his business anyway. She was 21. She could date whoever she wanted. Horace straightened up from moving the flower planter back into place when he locked eyes with his lover. Miss Julie was just standing at the back door, frozen in shock. She hadn't bothered to turn the kitchen light on, which would have alerted Horace to someone in the room. It was very dark outside, for the night had become overcast and had blocked out the moon's rays of light. They stood for several moments just staring into each other's eyes, locked in total darkness and intimacy, until the kitchen light flickered on. It wasn't until that moment that Horace realized she had been crying out the word, help. He was too wrapped up in being that close to his lover, seeing her in reality so soon after such a fantasy messed with his mind even more. He just kept staring at her face. He could see her mouth was in that luscious O formation. She seemed to be talking to him, but he couldn't seem to understand her. He just shook his head. He realized it was the word help he was hearing. He was confused why she would be screaming for help. It was only he, her lover. She left the back gate unlocked, and the key was under the flower planter, so obviously a sign from her to be there. Why was she so upset, he wondered. To Horace, it felt like it all happened at once. Miss Julie's eye contact, the lights being turned on, and then the hostile sound of her father. Horace looked over finally and could see her father was on his cell phone coming towards them. He was sure he heard the words police. It was the sight of her father that caused him to run. Horace ran to his truck and drove off as fast as he possibly could. Shit, shit, shit! Horace punched the steering wheel while struck against it with his fist, waiting for the world's longest traffic light at the major intersection down the road from Miss Julie's house to finally change. Suddenly, Horace could see a disco ball of lights flashing in the night coming towards his direction at a very fast speed. He heard the screeching and blaring of sounds of police sirens. Horace froze. There was nothing to do but wait to be arrested at a red traffic light. He could suddenly blow through the light, but he knew that wouldn't save him. It seemed to take forever for those lights and sirens to get to him, as if every second was in slow motion, until the cop cars were upon him. He closed his eyes and swallowed hard. This was it, Horace thought, and waited. Nothing happened. Horace opened his eyes to see the cops had driven right past him. The sounds of the sirens were already becoming quieter as the police cars drove further away from him. He couldn't believe it. They never even slowed down. Horace breathed out a sigh. As he drove on towards his place, he wondered, was it a sigh of relief or of disappointment? Strangely, he wasn't sure. It was a very odd and uncomfortable feeling for him, making him push it back as far as within him as possible, and just concentrated on making it home. A little while later, while he was lying on his own cot, Horace reminisced about his date that night. It was so wonderful. It was exactly what he needed, until the end. He just couldn't understand why she seemed so upset with him tonight. He was there like she wanted. He was leaving before her father would have found out about him, so why did she have to alert him to her lover's presence? He was suddenly so enraged, he sat up and smashed his fist against the wall. The cops! The asshole father called the cops on me, all because of a little misunderstanding. Couples have misunderstandings, right? That's all it was. Father started it anyway. Her father just had to lock her away from his view. That bastard just kept lovers apart like that. You can't. It ain't right. Of course, I'm not going to let some stupid thing like this, an Ivy, keep me from my lover. But to call the cops just because I was visiting my lady love is outrageous. I was just visiting my lady love. Outrageous. Maybe if she had forgotten the date or thought it was earlier than it was, that's what it must be. She just lost track of time and didn't expect to see me so soon. Women. Probably was just upset because she hadn't gotten more ready than she wanted to see her man. Doesn't she know she's perfect just the way she is? She doesn't have to scream like that. It was just me. She acted like she was seeing some stranger when it was only me, her lover. She seems so angry. She knows how I am. Her father didn't have to call the police. She knows me. How could she tell her father? Horace punched himself in the side of his head and then sighed. Oh, of course. It wasn't our usual time, that's why. It's usually early in the day when we get together. That must be what it was. I wasn't there at a regular time because of that stupid Ivy blocking our connection. She's just upset and punishing me for not apologizing for not connecting properly from a previous date. That's what it must be. Women. They're so hard to understand, yet too hot not to bother with. Ha! Oh, I'm gonna have to make up for it next time. Oh, I can't wait to see my lover again. Soon, baby, soon. Horace whispered to the image of Miss Julie in his mind. That was Chapter 16 of The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. So make sure you're following and subscribing wherever you're watching or listening to this. If you'd like a copy of the book for yourself, check it out on Amazon. It's available in paperback and Kindle. And let's get into chapter 17. I'll see you there.